Yo, yo, yo. What's up?
Let's go. The first podcast
Yeah.
officially.
So yeah, what are we doing? What is this called?
It's called WalletFrens. Well, friends. We're basically trying to make friends with wallets. Well, we're trying to find people, different people who we vibe with, who we want to learn with, who our audience want to probably listen to. I think that's the bigger motive behind this podcast.
Yeah, and it's like wallets are like essentially your own identities on chain and your own whole like record of your activity, right? And that sort of thing talks about like who these people have been, and then I think we just want to catch up with different people, builders, creators working in the space, and talk about what has been their journey and like what do they see happening in the space. So, and first episode we are catching up, Amber. So let me kick it off by asking you this question about like what has been your wallet story. When
My
when did you
wallet
make your
story.
when did you make your first wallet? And yeah,
My
what was
first
it?
Ethereum wallet. I think my first Ethereum wallet was made on my Ether wallet. I think this was 2017, maybe July or August. That was the first time I ever made my Ethereum wallet. It was ICO hype mania. It was just taking off at that time. We were building a project, me and a bunch of friends in wherever we are currently based in India, and yeah, I mean that was an absolute ride. It was the era of shit coins. Like basically every single day, you had one 25-year-old guy come up with a white paper, create some hype on Bitcoin forum, coin market cap, wherever there is like some activity, and then just like raise 5 million, 10 million, 15 million. So anyone who has had like a decent product basically used to come up and be like, today. So imagine a company who has like a SaaS product, just like doing 100K, 200K per year. One fine day they're like, okay, now I'm like blockchain. This is white paper. This is a working product. I'm doing an ICO. Boom, $10 million. No accountability, none whatsoever after that, right? Like, absolute. After that, they still make money. Like, the grift continues. It's not just about raising the money. It's about like going and listing on an exchange and then trying to like still grift a bunch of more people. Yeah.
So what was the first activity then you did during the shitcoin era with your wallet?
Man, the first thing I did was obviously I bought into a bunch of absolute trash coins, which were like.
I mean, you
which
got to
had
right,
like
like that's the whole idea. That's why you made the wallet in the first place.
which was basically. The first fight was actually getting Ethereum into that wallet, so I had to actually ask somebody, a friend of mine, to send some Ethereum so that it could like be used as gas fees. And then I participated in like a bunch of ICOs at that time. Some decent ones, some very bad ones. I think after that, like went completely degening around, just like going to every single forum. Everyone's trying to give calls. Today buy this, tomorrow buy this, like giving targets and all. So this was it. Like this was my first like absolute seeing ERC20 wallets. The whole point of Etherscan at that point was to check whether your transaction was finished or not. Now it takes like it's pretty fast. Like 12 confirmations are like less than like 30 seconds or a minute. That time used to be like maybe like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. You have to like sit and wait.
Yeah, I remember even my first transaction, and I'm like thinking, like cross-checking it 10 times if the transaction is like, are we like you're sending it to some random number, right? Just reading through fucking each letter and seeing like you're making it to the right thing or not. So yeah, for me it's been like pretty new, like like in 20 like the first sort of money that I put into crypto was in 2018. I think my friend who's been just going gaga about Bitcoin, and finally like in when Bitcoin is about 6,000, I realized, okay, probably this makes some sense, and maybe we can get there. But that was not really my wallet, right? It's a centralized exchange in which I put my money in. My first decentralized wallet that I made was on MetaMask, early 2021, actually, not too long ago, and
Wow. Your
I'm pretty
piece,
new.
your crypto.
Exactly, and it was a very interesting experience, that even to make that first transaction, right? Just knowing that you have to put in some Ethereum, and how do I fucking get that Ethereum in the first place? And it's a trip in itself, and I like a lot of people who got into this space pretty recently. I kind of got into this because to buy an NFT, and it was interesting. There was at that time COVID was like on peak, and then there were a lot of events that are happening around COVID relief, and during that time Polygon raised a bunch of money for COVID relief. Sandeep from Crypto COVID Relief had put out a thing, and so during that time there was an artist collective who had created created an NFT, collaborative NFT, whose funds were going toward COVID, and so that was the first NFT that I minted, and I was pretty happy with what I got, and it was a very interesting experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the region vibes were on from the first time you have like touched the Ethereum blockchain, right?
Yeah, and then it went all degen south from there, of course. So. I mean, you had to, right? Like you had come in like at the right perfect time to do degen shit. So.
When was your
And
ENS though?
so ENS was a very interesting thing. Basically, I first went and didn't even search Anuj.eth because I thought, like, why will it be there, right? Like, I just searched like Anuj codem.eth, and I was getting it. I was happy to buy it. Then I thought maybe I can just check, right? What is there like? And then I checked and fucking Anuj.eth was there, and I'm like, oh, I'm the first Anuj on the blockchain. That sounds good. On Ethereum and like, so at least ENS. So. And I was happy to get that, and then I think that was the next NFT that I bought.
Got it.
And what about you? Like, what is the when did you have your Ethereum, wallet address, and like what's the first few activities that you've done there? And
My first Ethereum wallet, yeah, like I said, was on Mythio wallet. The first few activities I did was I gave my friend in India over here a bunch of Indian rupees, and I asked him to please transfer some Ethereum to my wallet so I can kickstart the whole process of the gas fees and all, right?
and when did you
Maybe like
start your
some.
NFT journey?
The first NFT that I bought was a CryptoKitty, right? Like
Okay.
so we were all a bunch of people in like in the office, and suddenly suddenly one of them sees what's happening on Coin Telegraph, and at that time Telegram groups were like a source of information mostly. So like Twitter, Telegram, look, these things were blowing up with like there are cats on blockchain. So we were like, so we all used to work on like a like flat office, right? So everyone is sitting across each other. So suddenly, like everyone's like looking at what's cats on blockchain, and then we all suddenly load up like very little ether, and then we go over there, and then we start buying a bunch of cats, and then everyone's looking at each other, and then like, what do we do now? So the whole point was ability to breed and then play the game, and then there's a lot of activity that had to be done after that, but like so it was like fading interest for people after that first knowing of like buying a cat. So same was with me. Like my interest like slowly faded after I realized that, oh, so this is like a grind, or this is like something which I'm not too familiar with, although I understand the concept of it. Then obviously with this interest, all of us started jamming on what's an NFT, what could be an NFT. So my friend Abhishek, so he was like, oh, dude, look at this bag. Like if this was owned by Sachin Tendulkar, this would be an NFT. So, so we started like jamming ideas, one on top of another, as what could be an NFT and what could not be an NFT. So yeah, I mean, that rabbit hole was on for a while, but obviously like many other interesting shiny objects you see in crypto, like there's always a shinier thing that is happening. So I just moved on from that CryptoKitties phase.
At that time, like I'm curious, like did you think like it would be such a big thing or so many people would get interested in the shit? Like, because CryptoKitties, I'm guessing it's 2017, somewhere around that, right? Like, and
2017, 2018, yeah.
yeah, and
I honestly
I
think
think,
I should have like had much more conviction in what I saw at that time, right? Like, I think I should have like hung out more with the NFT crowd at that time. Like, although it sounded absolutely crazy, I think if I would have hung out, I would have had a much better result as such. Like, professionally, personally, being a little closer to the ecosystem would have had like multiplier effects. I just like waned it off as one of those, supply chain blockchain is like a thing, right? Like, so it's a fad. So, yeah.
it's hard to know, right? Like, even if you were to take a guess right now that you are in the ecosystem in the middle of action, like, could you guess like what would be the next big thing? Like, there's so much shit happening, right? Like, there is talks about social tokens which are throwing down, and like or like DAO ecosystem, and like obviously these are the next sort of few shiny objects that's out there, and people are speculating these could be the next ones. But would you bet like thousands of dollars on one of these, or if okay, for future reference, right? So like 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, when you're probably rewatching this, like what do you think is that next thing which had that NFT moment, according to you, probably that's going to be there 3 years later?
Um, I don't think we have seen like entertainment industry or like music or like so for me, like I think the like personally in all of my NFT journey, the only perfect product market fit for which the whole NFT was made itself, I felt, was for gaming. So like I think um I like it is going to be like the North Star of like the NFT ecosystem at someday or some point. Like even if you see most NFT projects right now, in down their paths, they like a whole at least third of them have planned out a game that will come out for people to play out of them. So I think games are going to be that one undeniable bet everyone's even taking right now. I think that's one place I'd put my money on.
So I think you're talking about NFTs getting adoption in like what sort of segment. I'm also kind of curious to know what other asset class or what other just like NFTs were like a passing fad in like 2017, right? Among like if altcoins was the all the rage then, and then this NFTs was like this low lying, maybe some side thing which is happening. Like, and similarly we spoke about this in the past also, like what's happening right now with NFTs like in 2021 was probably something similar what happened with altcoins in like 2017, 2018. So if NFTs is that right now, what is the NFTs of 2017 that is happening right now? What do you think?
See, one of the fundamental reasons I think why NFT blew up was the simplicity it comprised of, right? Like it is very simple for like a layman to like really understand. Maybe not the tech, but attracting somebody showing a shiny object of an image, I think is like way easier than showing a bunch of digits. Like I could say at this point, like, hey, like ZK rollups are going to be like the next big thing where they're going to like make sure a lot of transactions are settled off chain, right? Like not,
Yeah, I mean
settled
that's
on a
that's
different
probably
chain.
for like it enables a functionality, but it's not that shiny object which would probably like it enables a bunch of things, right? It enables the needs of the customer, but it may not be an asset class, like so to speak, which would get like a lot of mainstream adoption or blow up so big. Um, I mean, like when I ask you that question, I'm also thinking because I think I'm also kind of putting you in the spot and trying to get an answer from you. I'm also thinking,
No, there's no like first of all, like anyone who predicts this is like always wrong. Like very few people even get it right, right? It's only like these different data points that you have. You're like trying to connect dot, and you're like trying to predict what's the next dot. Like depends upon how many dots that you know that you can actually predict the next dot.
and how lucky can you get, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, imagine the guy who minted the crypto bunks for free. right? Like, or the person, like, imagine the
Yeah.
person who minted CryptoPunks for free. Like,
Or the one that was
that would
sent
have been
into
a,
the dead wallet in like 2018, right? Like there's bunch of
imagine
crypto ones
that.
that were sent. Yeah. I mean, thinking about that, what I'm sort of also like for reference, like I think there's a like the whole altcoin cycle went through a certain this thing, and then there came this other asset class which is like non-fungible, right? So I think there might be another sort of surge where so-called altcoins find a different kind of utility where they also become a way for. I mean, it like we are already seeing NFTs getting that main attention, and then there a lot of these projects have come up with their derivative assets, which is the token, right? Like whether that's ApeCoin or Milk or like any of these other coins which people have put out for the NFT ecosystem. I think those are also very interesting, and it's hard to categorize them into what bucket do they fall into. Like theoretically, they are like DAO tokens, right? But I
Yeah.
think they can very well be called also social tokens in some context. Essentially an ERC20, right? So I think resurgence of an ERC20 use cases is something, and which are used more for sort of mainstream adoption than just speculative use cases. I think that could be one thing which probably the 2023 or like 2024 cycle of like that would be my guess. Like I mean, I'm just taking a shot here. So
So let's look at this parallel, right? Like there were like, let's say so many ICOs that happened, and then there was like the bear market that came in, and then the rest of them who were left back and who were actually building good shit, right? Like the first thing, one of the first things that they started doing was having like transparency towards what they're doing, right? So that they are they're actually, it's like signaling in a way, like, okay, hey, we are here in this ecosystem, this is our treasury, okay, these are the things that we are doing in our company, here are certain proposals we are taking, and then this is the direction that we are going. Gives a sense of seriousness for people who want to be participative in an ecosystem, right? I'm pretty bullish on that happening in NFT ecosystem, or like in this particular cycle of like people who have like raised money. The only people who will try to like who will actually deliver are people who will have that level of transparency, trust, or like take even Bode Yacht Club for example. Like one of the few things that they did was like set up ApeDAO. Now they have like proper proposals, staking, all of that transparency, what is there in their treasury, all of these things. I think these are like just gold standards of like projects which want to like really outperform, stand through the test of time, bull, bear, doesn't matter. I think even people who want to participate in projects should look for these signals of how transparent these guys are with the kind of decisions that they're taking, or how decentralized, in other words, they are. Yeah.
well, that's very interesting, right? Like I think what we are kind of talking about here is uh, sort of how cream is separating themselves from the whole thing, right? Like, what are the things that people or projects would stay alive during this period? What are the things that they would be doing, and possibly even like some of the projects which are right now trying to figure out, like, okay, what do we do? I think if we were to just take a step back and maybe unpack a little bit about what happened so far in the NFT ecosystem, and I think like it's also unsaid thing, but I think it's for anyone who's listening, just to give some context. I think we are really diving deep into the NFT ecosystem, and going to talk a little bit more about that specific ecosystem for now. So in that context, like if we can unpack a little bit what happened so far, what is the story? Like if I'm a person who's just like coming in and like just I just know about Bored Ape, and like and I'm just listening to this, uh like just tell me like what happened so far, and then like where we are at, and then let's talk about like what do we see, some of the things that's happening in the ecosystem that's interesting.
Sure. I think this whole thing goes back to COVID. I would definitely start back from like COVID, right? Like COVID pushed people to like become a little more digital. Suddenly, people started spending more time on computer screens. play to earn games, not play to earn, um, the money games, right? Like you can play poker online, you can play rummy online, you can bet on like sports events, all of these real money games. That's what they're called. I've seen a massive upsurge. I think like this is my understanding, right? Like suddenly NBA was not able to like conduct matches, and then long beyond, the guys who have built CryptoKitties go like I think strike a deal with NBA and then launch NBA Top Shots. Like there were NFTs existing, CryptoPunks. I think CryptoPunks, hash masks. These were the projects which are like there for a while. But I think what really took off was when you have like a juggernaut like NBA having like deep pockets, billions of dollars, walk into the door and then say NFTs. I think that definitely made everyone take a look at them and be like, what are these guys talking about? But kudos to them. I think one beautiful thing that they've done is providing the user experience of going through buying these moments as such, right? Like, I think the first time you and me were going through this, one very sharp notice that we made was there was no mention of the words cryptocurrency, NFT,
Yeah.
or any of these things. It was just like, hey, like it's a moment, it's a collectible,
Yeah.
like it's a card, it's a checkout, right? Like although
Yeah.
all of this was on like a flow blockchain.
Yeah.
I think that really gave rise to the summer.
Yeah, and the next thing that I saw was like also when art was like being collected, like this was the sort of that after that was there, then I started seeing like stuff on Foundation and a lot of these. Obviously, there was the 69 million people sale, which like all of a sudden brought attention to this. Like, what is this, right? Like, and then Foundation was picking a bunch of volume, and then we started seeing memes bought for like shitloads of money, and then like okay, so then I started understanding the space, and like I said, right, like the first thing that I bought was an art NFT. So I was just trying to understand like how there were like parallels of the art world where like art as an investment was an ability was a way for people to store their value or collect appreciate in value and being early paid off there. So I think there was a lot of upsurge around art, and I remember this like clearly. There was this whole thing debate which artists were kind of talking about whether uh, to make more or less, right? Like because there was a whole aspect of scarcity, and people were trying to figure out that balance between should I make more art, like should I keep it limited so that my value is appreciated, and like there were like almost came to a point where people were saying like no, you shouldn't make a lot of art and like you should keep them as less and this sort of a thing. And then I think all of a sudden there was this another thing that was coming out, something called collections, right, where like there were like 10,000 assets, and a lot of these assets were now being traded, and there was a bunch of volume that started happening. So how did you like kind of see what is happening with collections?
I think collections started around February, March, right? Like
2021.
so yeah, 2021 around like January, I think CryptoPunks were flying for like $20,000, $25,000 a pop, right? Like that was a time where already like it was the scarce thing on the network. I think around there were a bunch of collections that dropped. I think Kongs, CyberKong, and then I think there was
Hashmask
Mooncats. I
was
think
already
Mooncats is
there.
also, yeah, Hashmas was already
Yeah,
there.
Mooncats I think was like there for a pretty long time.
Yeah, these guys were there from pretty long time. So even like Mooncats picked up a bunch of volume around that time, right? So these projects were there, but I think what really happened was the whole summer was like started by like Bored Ape Yacht Club, right? Like I think the way they've executed the project or how they've like riled up a community of people to get crazy behind a bunch of internet monkeys. I think that basically, like, it was almost like a revolution, right? Suddenly, everyone is waking up to, like, the ability to like drop a collection, like, hey, I can like as an artist, I can like create 10,000 variations of like one base character or like one artistic story that I create, and then give it out to people. And then I think what was the most, I think like giga chat move that Bored Ape did was give owners the ability to like do whatever they want with their NFTs, right? Like you have your IP, the end.
Yeah.
You can't do, yeah. So I think that really like people really had that click moment of like, oh shit, now this is it. Like I'm now buying a part of the next decentralized Disney or like or some other Marvel universe or whatever it is, right? So except I own my character, right? Like so people were like confused and surprised at the same time, and then
Yeah.
there were a bunch of things these guys did. I think yeah, those really catapulted them.
Yeah, during that time, IP was a big like question mark, right? Everyone was, I remember like when I just got in like in March, I was reading articles about do I even own the IP of this stuff, right? And you had like, and no one knew the answer. Like I think even today people don't answer to that.
Yeah.
Like there is like still like very recently a debate about CC0, is it good or bad for like moonbirds and things like that. But going back to that point, I think the whole question of like giving IP and that creating a sort of value, right? Like a perceived value or a real value, and like kind of people jumping onto it. And I think there were a bunch of other catalyzing events also that happened. There was definitely the overall global like celebrity attention to punks, and I think Gary, like there was this very infamous call where Gary Vee kind of got like bunch of YouTubers and celebrities on a call, and they said like just buy crypto punks, and like people are like what the fuck are you talking about, right? And I'm sure there are so many other sorts of conversations that happened where people were starting to waking up to what this could be, and I think like when collections were starting to blow up, the other interesting thing which was also happening was these metas around collections itself. I think I remember seeing Ape at about like 1 Ethereum, 4 Ethereum, and then this whole volume thing was like picking up. There was like a lot of volume that was coming in, and there was also a very interesting thing that started happening, which is the like typically from whatever I've seen previously, there were this holder persona, right? Like largely people were buying this stuff to hold, and that's how they made most of their returns. And I think there was this new persona which was developing, which was the flipper persona. And I think the whole flipper persona, like how did they change this whole ecosystem, is kind of clear from just seeing who are the top profitable traders in this ecosystem, and Pranksy sits right up there in like 2021. And what interesting thing that I found what Pranksy did was like he started getting volume of secondary volumes. I think that was a big change, which I think OpenSea, even in some of their conversations, they admitted that like they didn't expect it to blow up so much because they were like the secondary marketplace, and the whole blow up of the secondary volume where people started buying something and selling it for like 2x, 3x, 10x profit, I think. And very famously, like even Pranksy bought a bunch of these Bored Apes and then flipped them for like 3x to like 10x profits. And I think that that is like a huge profit then, like, and then people saw like 100x, 1000x profits, and that was like life changing money for a bunch of these people who just got into that ecosystem. And then there was this whole trickle down impact of that going into sort of other collections, and the whole collection ecosystem started blowing up. And then there were like a lot of sub metas that were now starting to form, like okay, and it was all like a guessing game, right? Like to figure out like what is the meta right now, where the money is sort of moving. And what do you think about like some of the metas and like the whole metas that are happening then?
I think more than meta, let's look at few trigger points, right? Like, see, I believe NFT NYC was like a very major trigger point for like 2021 NFT summer to take off. Like, imagine like the energy that was there in NFT NYC. I think that kind of defined the the whole NFT bull run as well. They were able to basically get people from around the world, and people who were like holding certain apes could go to like a boat party, right? Like I think these things, when people saw like shit like this happening, they were like they were blown away by the way Web3 communities function as such. Like now, so far, all these people were like suppressed to sit in their homes during their COVID, and then suddenly they're coming out and they're seeing like nerd Comic Con, like or like what like a or like a blockchain version of a Comic Con, which is like NFT NYC, where people are like, instead of wearing cosplays, now they have like internet JPEGs. So I think this is like a very very important trigger point for this whole NFT summer to take off. And like you've mentioned, people like Pranksy have ensured there is like so I think if I'm not wrong, he purchased 1,200 board apes, and then he started like basically selling them at like different prices. And like he played a major role. Like hats off to a few people at that time, like Beanie. There was Gary Vee. There were a few people who really stood out in trying to like make sure. I mean, everyone can have their biases on whether they like them or they dislike them, but there were few people who basically jump-started the whole ecosystem. Twitter shit posting, like memes, like all of this culture as such. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you spoke few names which people have strong opinions about, and rightfully so, right? Like I think you touched upon something very interesting. Twitter. So, Twitter had a fucking massive role in like the whole thing that went out, and you had to be like, it started becoming like a mandatory social media that you need to be in this ecosystem. So. Just curious, like I think because I kind of saw Twitter only from the context of NFT ecosystem, was this always the place for even during the 2017, or it's something like, I mean, crypto Twitter is a thing, I understand that, but also like, was this that prominent that you had to be on crypto Twitter like to trade?
Yeah, I think few places that I think right now crypto Twitter like straight up dominates everything, right? Like if you're able to play a good psyops game on Twitter, like you can move anything. Like basically you can probably do cause a supply shock. You can increase the price. You can do whatever. You can do any kinds of manipulation. I think this wasn't the case. Evidently, at least at that time, the medium of distribution was a little different. I think the OGs at that time used to hang out in Reddit, 4chan, and Bitcoin forum, right? Like I think these were the places where a lot of these people used to hang out. Followed by that, you had like Twitter that came up in like 2016, 2017. See, like people who had like public personas, people who could be that people, they were on Twitter for a very long time. But as you know, there is like a massive anonymous, like people in this ecosystem who like to stay that way. So and the way social medias, like they inherently work on where you have currently collected a certain clout. Like if I have like 1 million followers on Clubhouse, even today I'd probably do this podcast on Clubhouse because I have 1 million followers. I don't want to be on any other platform, right? So they probably got their followers on any of these mentioned platforms that I've told. So, and then there was Telegram as well. Like Telegram groups was the thing. Like if you had like there were times where there are like, even now there are like whale Telegram groups where there are like 20, 30, 40 people, like like millionaires, and then trying to not manipulate the market, but they make like very intellectual discussions on like what's happening, what is the macro, what is the cycle, or what is the technology. So I mean, these are like
But I think,
people,
yeah,
brain
so
people, yeah.
like Twitter brought in a whole new dynamic where, your kind of now reputation aspect is also coming into picture, right? Like, which brought about very interesting dynamic, especially considering the user base that was getting onboarded through this whole cycles of like the newly found volume, and a bunch of people are like first time getting exposed to crypto. Even like a bunch of people who just put their first money into Ethereum, and they're getting this information from influencers. So this whole category of people, and then there was this almost like a catching up game that was happening, which people, insiders, within certain subgroups knew where the money was moving, and like all of a sudden there is a new meta, like women NFTs are a thing, right? Because few people decided it is, and
Yeah.
and that's gonna be, and then it comes down to you to figure out where the meta is moving, and I think and this is the time I think where very interesting sorts of tools started coming up, which were tracking this on-chain activity and trying to figure out what the meta is and where sort of action is moving. And I think IC Tools was one such tool, which then there were these other peripheral tools which were getting built, like which is like Rarity Tools, which was trying to figure out like what to price in, and because people were just first time selling their first NFT and kind of figuring out what should they price. And so let's talk a little bit about how the whole peripheral ecosystem around NFTs was sort of starting to develop apart from the main trading platform itself.
Yeah, I have a major complaint against Twitter as such. I think Twitter is like the biggest boon and the bane as such. Like I think um, Twitter can make or destroy your life. Long story short, right? Like if there are artists who are shy, for example, who are not the best at expressing themselves when they are like trying to put out an art, like unfortunately the way this ecosystem functions, like it's very difficult for them to like be able to get that kind of eyeballs onto them. Sure, foundation does do a great job at being able to create that opportunity for people, but still you need a foundation invite. You need to still find that friend who's on foundation to get you that invite, right? But I mean, see, bane, I mean, boon in a way, because if you're a content creator or if you're someone who is able to like pull a whole bunch of audience towards you, then you're in for a treat. I think that's the playground that you should play, because I think in Web3 the most important thing that comes down to is always about building communities, and then building, even if you're an artist or even if you're like a product builder, even if you're like a protocol, even if you're like a developer, like if you're vocal about who you are, if you're able to bring rally around a community of people around your what you are, good or bad. We've even seen like instances where like people are blinded by someone like Dokwan, right? Like, Dokwan warriors or whatever you want to call them. But so I know there is this hero-like worship that happens in crypto, which is very evident. But then again, where doesn't it happen, right? Like it's not like it just happens in crypto. Like Elon Musk, people do the same thing to every single one. Like, yeah, like people are there. Like I think there's this saying somewhere, right? Like every hero someday turns into a villain or something like that. Like they're always there
They
till
live
till
long enough to
you really
become a
meet
villain.
them.
Or
Yeah.
I think it's some
Yeah,
Dark Knight
something like
dialogue.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So something like that, right? So, yeah, I mean, yeah, all of this, man. Like, when you see all of these things, like it basically gives you like a different perspective. I feel, yeah.
I think that unparalleled leverage also brought in a lot of sort of so like if I were to look at let's say a Telegram group kind of behavior where signals were being shared, so to speak, and then like there's this open platform where people were talking about it. But I think there's a very interesting angle to this too, where people now what they're talking also is their reputation as online, because it's from their sort of social profiles, and most of them, like a lot of them doxed. Not everyone is doxed. There were a lot of anonymous profiles also built their identities, but I think but that is sort of another balancer, I would say, which puts things a little bit more weightage, because it's like you can't talk shit and get away with it because there's proof. And um, even more so on like blockchain, where all of your chain activities linked, and that is where some interesting things like started happening where people started uh, like tracking these collections which are blowing up and tracking people's activity and sort of seeing what are this doing, and like I think then there while like Twitter had like a lot of these people who were shilling and maybe even promoting stuff and like
Grifters.
yeah, and but there were also other people who were like looking at what's actually happening and kind of pointing out stuff, digging deep into certain projects. And I think there are a bunch of people who started building their reputation that way by being. So it's a very interesting like a social game that I see. Like there are all these different characters that kind of start developing in this sort of sub game. And I think Twitter is another whole different topic which we could like talk, like the game theoretical dynamics of what happens, and I would love to talk with some other day. And just going to the other side of things, talking a little bit about the tooling itself, right, and how the ecosystem itself has grown apart from. So I think first was like, okay, there came the secondary volume, OpenSea was blowing up, and then there was these other peripheral tools which started developing. So like let's talk a little bit about like what happened there and like how was that evolved.
I think the big daddy of all of these tools is Nansen, right? Like legit, like big daddy. There's no questions to that. Like the way they basically index data or like try to serve it, or the speed at which they do, or the clarity to which they do, is unparalleled. Leaving that aside, I think the most utilitarian tool that NFT flippers really hung on to for a long time, I felt, was rarity tools. Now, that was something basically which enabled people another layer of gambling itself, right? Like in the sense, now it's not just about buying an NFT. Now they want to buy the NFT which is like 2% rarer than like yours. That could probably push the floor price that could push probably the price at which I sell probably like one to like 2 degrees higher than what I'm probably selling right now. So I think rarity tools was for me like a very, very interesting project. I think the guy who did it had like a listing fee, I think of like 2 Ethereum per project. This was at the peak of like all of this, and then whenever someone tried to do a purchase, I think he had a referral link with OpenSea. So one fine day, I went up to the Etherscan to which all the referrals are going, and then I figured that the guy was making around 15 to 30 Ether on any given good day of NFT NFT days. That's like a lot. So, and like absolute kudos to that person who built it, right? Like I think they really found a use case and solved it to the absolute perfect pitch perfect clarity for what people want. Yeah. These are the two tools I would say like which gave rise to like so many of those tools. Yeah.
What was the other one?
Rarity tools, Nansen and rarity tools.
Oh, okay, Nansen and rarity tools, right? So I think for me, as there were a couple of interesting things which people were tracking. One was also so the behavior now, like here, was sort of figuring out meta, right? So if we take a zoom out and like kind of see what is happening here, it's a new kind of speculation that has come up, right? So there is a whole speculative volume that has come into NFTs, and it's about like buying and selling it, flipping it for the thing, and then so first and a lot of people were buying their first NFTs also, so they really didn't know like what is the game that's happening here, right? So so there were these people who were able to figure out by identifying which are the collections which are sort of blowing up, and then to figure out like to go one level behind and figure out like who are the people who are causing these blowing ups, and kind of following their wallets and seeing what's happening to get an insight into sort of what is blowing up. And I think this behavior also gave sort of edge to people who are buying, like trying to flip them, and then there were like other sorts of tools like NFT nerds, which now then enabled them to buy them faster, figure out stuff which is underpriced, and like a bunch of these other like rarity snipers, like things which were trying to help people find sort of best value within those things. And I think while like these were sort of the bucket of tools which largely people used to get a sense of like all of this was happening. And I think through January, like now coming to January of 2022, and I think that's when things like were at an all-time high, and then a bunch of tools were being built in this ecosystem. And then like now, if you were to talk a little bit about how does that transpired into like early Q1 2022, Q2 2022, like what happened then, and like, you know, how did these sorts of other sorts of things started happening here?
I think it's like these are all like multiplier effects, right? Like think about this. I like to think about it in like it's almost like a cyclic effect. Like you had NFT ecosystem, you had a lot of people coming in. When you had a lot of people coming in, you knew you would need data and tools, and so the infrastructure providers became a little more robust, and then they started providing better quality data for people to be able to build better tools on top of it, right? Like so, it was all like it's a cause and effect of like users coming in, people trying to build better backend, better middleware, and then better apps in the front end. So definitely, and also like there were so many different pieces of the puzzle for this to happen. Imagine if there were no ENS, we would never know what is Gary Vee's wallet, right?
Yeah.
We would never know like who's Jimmy Fallon's wallet. Like so now imagine the role ENS played in this whole ecosystem itself, like of like NFTs blowing up itself. So each one of these infra slash applications had like so much like compounding effect to the reason why we have reached here, right? Like I think the way tooling functions was like the lowest abstraction for like a intermediate user to like figure things out. Like there is like at least like 7-8 layers that are happening before, right from the consensus layer of Ethereum to like when the data is like served on like one dashboard to like someone to like hunt for alpha. And it took a lot of time for us to come here, right? Like there was so many steps where so many pieces had to see evolution, where now we are able to look at use cases where we are able to give a fire hose of like absolute on-chain information, probably even tell you where the gas wars are happening, or even probably outbid someone in a gas war, right? Like I think NFT Nerds does this really brilliantly, where you can like see like each at a current point, like if like 8 people are bidding on an NFT, how much does each one has gas price? Now, if you want to outbid them, just increase the gas price and send the transaction. So yeah, I mean these are really tools that nail down to the T of like the user what their requirement is. Obviously, UX is still broken. Number of people are very less, but for the number of WAGMI dudes and WAGMI folks that are there in this ecosystem, I think the current tools that are built like did a decent job. I think there's still a lot to go, but so far we've come a long way.
Yeah, and I think sort of now that going into a bit of a slump, and then there was this whole ecosystem shift also then that happened, right? I think Ethereum was largely where the action was happening, and I think Solana started also picking up volume as things started slowing down a bit on Ethereum. And so there is this whole aspect about the ecosystem itself moving, like people who just always did on Ethereum started also going to Solana, and there was this whole new other subsection which was developing, which had a similar behavior, but at much at like low stakes, I would say, right? Like where the buy-in is like probably like 1/10 or 1/5 of what it is, and they were also kind of seeing that same behavior. And this so almost like, so if you think about it as like a game of like landmines, like what you're trying to really figure out is like where are things blowing up, and you would want to move there as early as possible, and having a bigger vantage point of like overall ecosystem cross chain like perspective on like where things are blowing up, and then also figuring out specifics of like what are the things that you would want to watch out when things are blowing up, and then the ability for you to make that transaction happen in like the best possible way. Like I think that whole end-to-end cycle is something what people started looking out for, and there was this whole different sorts of pieces that were there, which was giving that perspective. Um, and I think if we were to talk a little bit about sort of what happened, let's say in Q2 and like where we are at right now, and what are some of the things that we're seeing. Like I think it's also very interesting to see what happened in this bear market, where volumes have like drastically dropped, and like the meta has changed from the secondary volumes to like completely reducing the entry barrier at an entry level, and uh, what sort of dynamics that does that bring in, and like what sort of use cases are they sort of going for?
Yeah, I think I'm absolutely loving the free mint meta. Like it gives a very level playing field for everyone to be a part of the ecosystem, and also ensures that the people who are doing the projects have a little more skin in the game. No, I say this because there've been like I think the number of grifters that have, or like the number of people who have tried to um, try to like pull off slow rugs or like hardcore rug pulls and like NFT ecosystem like increase. Now in ICO time it was called exit scam. Now it's called rug pull. Story is the same. Basically, people come, they sell a promise, they sell the tokens, and then they fuck off. I think what Freemint basically gives is an opportunity for people to really get down and prove that they have a place in this ecosystem. Sure, the founders get to sound founders of these Freeman projects have to grind a little more, but I think once the project really takes off and there's like some price action happening there's like royalty that comes from secondary. I think that is like a good incentive to like function upon. Uh, And also, I think majorly when you look at some of the things that happened in bear bull market, right? Like each transaction is like an easy casual $30-40 gas fees, a casual $30, right? Like $30 in India is like I can get to eat a single meal in a five-star hotel, like I single guy. Like I can do that actually, right? Like that's still a lot of money. So now when I try to do a blockchain transaction now, Ethereum gas fees like anywhere between like zero point 0.5 to like $1. At times it's like maximum 1.5 to 2. If yeah, so due to that now people are okay to like just like when people are used to like spending zero point 0.5 to 1 ether on like things that look like derivatives or like things that don't make sense. I think they're absolutely okay with the point nothing, right? It does come with its own risk. The people don't use their primary wallets; they're always using burners to mint these tokens. But I think, yeah, non-financial blockchain activity, I think has a lot of potential. POAPs, ENS domains, I think ENS domains has had like a really a good on-chain volume and transactions even during the bear market. Um, and then games, I think, has a wonderful opportunity to grow given these insanely cheap prices for blockchain transactions happening. I'm very bullish on some of these use cases, which basically previously used to prevent people from entering the space, right? Like now, I think is a time when people can really have an opportunity, participate, like play small stake games, like prove their loyalty to a community, learn, like, and probably whack me. I don't know, I guess.
I have a bit of a different take on this, the whole free meta thing, like Freeman meta, because basically, if you think about it, like while it gives you an entry point to a lot of people, but also they are incentivized for secondary volumes, right? Like the projects are essentially incentivized, which then makes the whole flipping person a little bit less like less profitable. So then what it actually ends up building is people who are incentivized to like basically, let's say I bought it at like it was a free mint and then I bought it at like zero point 0.2. Now for me to sell at zero point 0.2, I need to I need that additional 7.5% appreciation, which makes me hold a little bit longer. And now the whole dynamic is like, I think, like as bear market sort of comes in, the whole flipper persona, which was kind of a bull market thing, now is also in, and with like the entry barrier sort of going down, and then people wanting to build their own community through certain things, right? Like a Freemint is basically they're reducing their entry barriers, and the number of people are reducing. Their flipping incentives are reducing, so people are incentivized to become holders, and then so on the speculative side of things, I see the transaction volume would keep moving from ecosystem to ecosystem. I think there will be a lot of other ecosystems where the speculative things, anything, the way I look at the whole ecosystem kind of evolving is flippers are going to be the like fire creators. These are the people who are going to go and like blow up an ecosystem like they just did with Solana. I think we can definitely see some action already starting happening on AVAX, and I think that would be another ecosystem which is to watch out for. And at a macro, it is also important to watch out for these different ecosystems and get a sense of like where the meta is moving from a flipping standpoint, because it's the number of people is going to get reduced, the volume is going to get reduced, and it is sort of just like the meta was moving from collection to collection. I think it could be also from moving to chain, and I think having the max output from that standpoint. So that's one sort of a track that would be very interesting to watch out for. And there is this other track of like how the existing ecosystems which had this blobs, how are they going to sort of change, right? So now the flipping incentives reduce, holding incentives increase. And at large now what you would want to, and like things are on a fire sale also, right? Like some of the good projects are on a fire sale because everything is there. And so now money will start consolidating more towards the solid ones. Like I think a lot of the projects which can go through this bear and build something fundamentally solid and have a promise or proven, like, so definitely there is like a lot of proven ones, like let's say like Bored Ape, which is consolidating and building a few things. Those are gonna stay, but then there are some of these other projects which are possibly lying down at like 0.3 and like not financial advice, but let's say Mooncats, right? Like or maybe even like cyber brokers. Like these are some of the good teams which are behind it, who've been in the space and are continuing to build some sort of ecosystem. And the entry barriers for these are less. So sort of the game then becomes to figure out which are like good projects, right? Essentially, like if you think about like what are the like during the 2018 bull cycle of altcoins, some of the ones which were there in like top 10, top 20 are nowhere to be seen in like 2021. But then there were a lot of these things which were building solid, and like Solana, for example, right? I think 2020 we saw it at like $1, and it's at like 40, it went up to 100, whatever, right? So then there are going to be a bunch of these projects which are going to get built during this phase, which will have a very low entry point, which will have like almost possibly even a free mint. And I think then there are some indicators based on which you can sort of also figure out which of these projects are really good. I think that is where the whole again, like the wallet watching aspect comes into picture a lot more than the volume blowing up things, because it's about the quality of people who are getting into it that would matter a lot more. And hence a community strength of a community would like start mattering a lot more, and having a unit level understanding of which are some of the like what is the strength of the quality of this projects, and like those sorts of things will matter a lot more than the speculative increase and decrease of these things. I think that's one meta moving across other different chains is another meta, and then the whole aspect about like you touched a little bit about like the non-financial transactions, right? So there is this one layer of thing which has been built in this part, which is the whole activities that I have done, or like for example, right, like in 2018, like
Okay.
when sorts of new
Hello.
projects have started in 2019, 2020. These projects started with, let's say, giving out certain incentives for existing set of users who were active prior to that through airdrops and things like that. I think so. Yeah. So I think like we're talking about it. So the uh, whole aspect about people, new projects which are coming up and being able to build their sort of initial community members through the airdrops and through whitelisting, which is happening today on at an individual collection level, is going to happen a lot more based on their on-chain activities. And I think there is so like people are going to discover like great projects at dirt cheap just by knowing like who are the set of those people. And then on the other side of things, great projects are also going to build their communities very intentionally by uh, doing whitelist or airdrops for the relevant set of people. I think these two sorts of things become very interesting, and that based on these insights is like sort of what we are building, what we are also building at Wall, right? So
Correct.
yeah, and I think the whole aspect about watching the right set of people to know when things are happening, when ecosystem cross chain ecosystem, when action is moving from one ecosystem to another, to get a vantage point of that, or to get an understanding of like where some of the really good wallets are going into, and what communities are really improving on their community strength based on their holder things, and what are the new communities which are forming, which are having like great starting holders, and the ability for actually people to build their own communities through looking at people's on-chain activity. I think this is the whole stack of things that we're trying to build at Wall. And yeah, so
Sure. So I
yeah.
think two, three observations in in this zone itself, right? I think number one, being able to prove certain things on chain is going to be a very key piece of what's going to come ahead. Okay, like so far it's been PFP, right? Like the PFP that you put out on Twitter is something that you can prove that you have. But going ahead, there we're going to see a lot of these things happen because more and more activities or more and more brands, companies, whatever it is, like the whole ecosystem is trying to come on chain. And now, when we actually have markers of certain social behaviors are linked to certain transactions, or certain people are linked to certain transactions, or certain people interacting with certain contracts has like a certain meaning to it. Once we start deriving these meaning, we try to. I think we tend to understand a lot more than the bytes that we see on the Etherscan, right? I think that's what I'm more excited about. And can be financial, non-financial, gaming, DeFi, doesn't matter. I think it's about like everyone has their own like trip on what they want to like what game they want to play in life, right? Like they want to play a DeFi game or a NFT game or shit coins. Like I know some people who just trade in uh, like 50 different variations of Dogecoin, right? Like, and they're happy with it. So like everyone has their own like little bubble that they want to be in, and then I think people finding communities, communities finding people based on a certain set of parameters, not just upon wallet addresses. I think is going to be an interesting journey.
Yeah, I think all of these things coming together where uh, the user on one side is being able to do a bunch of these discoveries, and then communities being able to talk to the right set of people, and then the whole interaction, how these things pan out. I think that's the ecosystem which enables this whole thing. I think that is what we're super excited to kind of build, and we'll talk a little bit more about what exactly the thing is. But I think this was a great conversation talking about like how the whole ecosystem has panned out, and where we see this going, and uh, this And this is exactly what WalletFrens is about. Like, I think to get a sense of talking to different people, getting different vantage points of like where we are at in this whole journey of Web3 that we are like embarked on. And in the macro, this is the whole movement is a big shift in the way things are built, whether that is like distribution, like the most important things that control the world, right? Like money, distribution, democratization. And I think there's a huge big revolution happening in the way these things are panning out, and different sorts of people are getting access to that. And I think in the macro, it's a very interesting conversation when you get a creator getting a perspective about how this is going to impact that ecosystem versus a person who is very actively into DeFi. How is he going to impact his own life? And I think that's what we are like kind of super excited about discovering through these conversations.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was a blast talking to you. I think we're going to have many more conversations, and then we're going to have many more conversations with more interesting people, and then we're going to be asking the questions. So excited for the next few episodes that we have lined up.
Awesome. So, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Hope you enjoyed these conversations, and if you do, share them across, and then let us know what would you want us to talk about, and who do you want us talking to. So, tag those wallet friends who you want us to chat with them, and let us know in the comments. So, see you guys on the other side.